Good afternoon, everyone. How are we all? Day 2 of Lisbon. I hope you're not too tired. You've still kind of got that energy. You still want to listen. You still want to learn, because that's why we're here. And we are here with a gentleman whom I've had the pleasure to chat to earlier, and he has some very interesting stories. For people who want to transition that space between being the tech guru, the CTO, the person who makes the tech work, to the person who makes the business work. Avery, please can you introduce yourself to everybody and tell us what your current business does?
Hello. So first of all, we should clarify, want to transition from the developer role to the CEO role. That might not actually be something that you want, but it was something that was sort of like, what's the word, like thrust upon me. My history goes back to my first computer my dad brought home when I was 3, and I wrote my first computer program in BASIC when I was 5. I memorized it. I didn't know what it did, but I could type the words. All the way through University of Waterloo in Canada. I started a startup. We eventually sold it to IBM. And the current startup is called Tailscale. We just raised our Series C. And I am the CEO of Tailscale. I was one of the earliest developers with my 2 co-founders. But I had to eventually step out of the development stuff to get into all of the business stuff.
Now, you mentioned you sold your first company to IBM, but it's quite a story behind that. You were very kind and caring to your sister. You wanted to share nicely, didn't you? Just like a good little boy, and then it all became... Most children would fight, wouldn't they, over something? Explain the story, because it is so good.
If we're completely honest, there was some fighting involved. So this was back in the mid-1990s. We had dial-up internet, as was a thing at the time, and we both really wanted to use it. And so in order to get more online time, I found a way to connect a second computer to the first computer and then share that dial-up internet so that we could both be using it simultaneously. And that eventually turned into... First of all, my first job at the first dial-up internet provider in Thunder Bay, where I was from. And that also turned into, eventually, the startup that I founded in university a few years later, where we discovered that a lot of people had exactly that problem in businesses at the time, where you'd have one dial-up modem on one computer in the corner, and everybody in an office would line up to be able to check their email. And so, it was a long time ago. I realized probably a lot of people here weren't even born at that time. But it was not great. And so when I realized, hey, this thing I kind of invented with my sister at home could be useful for actual companies, me and my roommate at the time decided to start a company doing it. And it was supposed to be just kind of like a little experiment for 4 months. But it turned out, it sort of became more popular than we expected. It was maybe an early example of what you could call viral growth in the tech industry, in that one company thought it was great. Somebody would come to their office and say, whoa, how does this work? And they're like, well, these 2 university students built it for me. They could build you one too. And it kind of got out of control from there.
To make you feel better, I remember those dial-up times, and we really could have done with something like that in the press offices at events like this, where you were all scrabbling over that telephone line. So you sold that to IBM, and then you moved on, didn't you? And you always talk about that you have technical DNA in you. What does that mean? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I think people describe it that way. I think it just means that, I don't know, some way or another, from very early age, I was just really, really into computers and really, really into coding. And I knew, in grade schools, this is it. This is fun. I don't know what coding jobs are going to look like in the future. Maybe I can't actually get a job doing this, but it's so exciting. My dad was someone who liked to tinker with physical stuff. And I think he was always a little bit disappointed that I was not into physical stuff at all. I got completely confused by which way is clockwise? And how does this thing come apart? And once you've pulled it apart, how do you put these things back together? And it's oh no, now it's broken. One thing I really liked about software is when you break stuff, you can just restore the backup and now it's fixed again, right? The physical world doesn't work that way. It kind of creeps me out.
So that move from technical DNA to business DNA there, how did you find that? Because you said that you were originally the CEO of that first company, but then you stepped back, didn't you? You actually said, no, this isn't for me at this time, and you got some other people in to help, didn't you?
Yep. Yeah, my first company, it was co-founded by me and my roommate at the time, Dave Coombs. who we were both very technical. We were both about 20 years old. We both knew absolutely nothing about what it meant to start a business, other than like, wouldn't this be fun to try for like a summer job while we were in university? And it was, we had, like I said, more success than expected. It started like spreading on its own. Eventually, at some point, I remember being like writing an exam and getting a tech support phone call from a really important customer. And I'm like, all right, well, it's time to take a bathroom break. So I ran out to answer this tech support call before I could like come back and finish my exam, which I then didn't finish because I was late. And that was the sign, is like, hey, this is maybe getting, you know, out of our control. Let's bring in a couple other people. And the two people that came in, we made sort of, we called them late stage co-founders, even though it was about a year and a half later. One of them became the CEO and one of them became the head of sales. And that worked pretty well. They led us to like a successful exit to IBM. But one of the things I learned from that experience is like, look, at that age with that experience, like I couldn't have done a better job than these guys did. With the experience I have now, like quite a bit later, and having seen other people do it and seen a lot more startups and in a completely different world that we live in now, like I really wanted the job of being where the responsibility stops, right? The worst, most annoying parts of my career are when things go wrong or like my project gets canceled for reasons outside my control. And that happens to engineers, and we just sort of like get used to it. And I'm just like, okay, I'm getting old now. I'm tired of this. If I'm going to screw up, it's going to be me screwing up next time. And that was the motivating reasoning at Tailscale.
So kind of taking responsibility onto yourself at this point.
Yeah. If it's my fault, at least I either learn from it or prevent it. And both of those are better than somebody else learning from it and not preventing it.
And tell me about your fundraising as well, because you didn't go about that in a traditional pitch deck. Let's create something that's got, you know, bells and whistles on it and it looks amazing and it sounds amazing and what have you. You actually went about that slightly differently, didn't you?
Yeah, so it turns out I'm a pretty confusing entrepreneur as far as our investors are concerned, or investors in general. I rarely show up with a pitch deck. I think we raised our seed round entirely on the basis of like conversation. It's like, here's this cool idea. We've got a prototype. We managed to sell it to a bank already. I don't know what to do with it next. And we actually, like, there's this joke in San Francisco. If you go to a venture capitalist and ask for money, they will give you advice. If you go to a venture capitalist and ask for advice, they'll try to give you money. And that's exactly what happened to us. We went down to San Francisco and said, like, we built this thing. What do you think? Is this a business? I don't know. And they're like, oh my God. We should invest. And by the time our Series A came around, we actually were getting pitch decks from venture capitalists telling us what our business model should be and why they were the best partner for us. And I'm like, all right, well, I don't know why this works, but they've sort of like, they've talked themselves into this belief that I'm this amazing negotiator because I don't know, I don't show up asking for money, and they're very confused.
So you kind of turned things upside down.
Yeah.
Shook it all around a bit, and you came out with the cash.
Right, and it comes from like I'm just trying to engineer some stuff. I always wanted to engineer some stuff. I'm forced to be the CEO just because of this. Like, look, I want it to be my fault, but I'm not that excited about doing business, right? I mean, it turns out I can do it, but I do it my way. I do it by like, look, here's reality. I'm not going to lie to you about reality. I'm not going to sell you a product that doesn't work. I'm not going to sell you a company that doesn't work for you to invest in. I'm just going to tell you it the way it is. And now I guess I have this reputation in the investor community, I've been told, is like, look, when you talk to Avery, just remember, he downplays everything. You need to multiply all the numbers by 10 times. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't do that if I were you. I don't think you should multiply by 10, but they don't listen to me.
So not only did you come up with a sort of upside down, back to front way of getting money, your marketing strategy isn't traditional either, really, is it? It's much more word of mouth.
Yeah, Tailscale from the very beginning has been very word of mouth. It took off kind of on its own. We built this product. I don't know how many people in the audience are familiar with Tailscale, but you can download it from the App Store on your phone or on your computer, or in Linux, you can download it from your favorite repository. You install Tailscale, you start it, and all you do is you log in with your Google account, and then it connects that device with any other device that's logged in with the same Google account. And all those things are just connected now, regardless of whether they're on the same network, where they are in the world, whether you left it at home, whether it's behind a firewall, etc. It makes these direct connections between any number of devices. And it's the original network effect. right? Or when we talk about social networking and virality, like social networking is called that because it's based on networking, and Tailscale is just a network. So we have this really interesting viral growth effect where people like try it and they get excited about it, and then they tell their friends, and their friends try it. But it's inside this like small-ish, we have millions of users now, small-ish community of like very technical people who care about this networking stuff.
And despite being sat on this quite large stage at Web Summit in Lisbon, one of the biggest tech events in the world, you are quite understated, aren't you, when it comes to business and when it comes to all that side?
Yeah, I'm pretty understated. Yesterday, I was at a CEO dinner, and one guy showed up a little bit late because he had been in another dinner, and he was the CEO of this other company. And he's like, wow, like I could tell this guy is a real CEO, right? It's like, ooh, he just like steals the spotlight just by being in the room. He has so much charisma. And I'm just like in my corner, doing my thing, talking to some other people, right? And it's like, yeah, I'm never going to be the person who's like automatically got the spotlight wherever I go, right? Best I can provide is like, look, I will tell you interesting stories, and I'll tell you true stories that can help you make a better decision, just like an engineer should do. And it seems like in the market that we're in with the customers that we have, people appreciate that.
But both approaches being that gregarious, hey, look at me, I'm a CEO, I'm a huge success, I've sold something for millions and millions, to being your much more understated, much more subtle way of doing things. They both work, don't they?
Certainly, I mean, certainly the other way works. My way of doing things is working so far. What can I tell you about the future, right? We just raised a Series C round a few months ago, $160 million. And this is, again, based on a pitch deck from the investor who wanted to give us the money, who thought like, hey, this is a great opportunity, and this is an amazing deal for me to give you $160 million. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. But it's been a very interesting experience. And I think, the hard part for me is just learning how to interact with humans in the way humans are expecting to be interacted with, right? Like here I am on a stage, and I should be telling you how great my company is and how like we're going to be super ultra successful, but like there's no guarantees in life.
Can you find me an investor who will write my pitch for me? I mean, this sounds
I can introduce you to the guy. He's very good at writing pitch decks. I don't know if he would do it for you or not.
But your whole story is such a kind of an eye-opener for me that things can be done differently. Because I think when you go into your first startup and you're looking at business, and it's so many things, so many words that perhaps you've not come across before, and it can be very daunting. And a lot of people saying, you've got to do this, and you've got to do that, and you've got to do this. And you didn't, did you?
I guess I didn't. It's one of those things is like, people always give this advice, right? Like, be yourself. And of course, the counter advice is like, well, who else could you possibly be? Like, even you pretending to be somebody is still you, right? Because that's what you would do, is pretend to be somebody. And so I don't have great advice for like what the average person should do. I will say if you're looking for investors, the most important thing is to get investors who are aligned with you, who you really are. Right? The most valuable thing I do is I show up at board meetings and I show up at investor meetings, and I just tell them like, look, this is who I am. If you don't like that, we're not going to be able to do business together long term anyway, because we're not going to get along. So, do you want to work with a person like me, right? And some people do and some people don't, right? Probably most people don't, right? And that's okay, because there's somebody else that they want to work with. But I really enjoy the investors that we work with because they're the kind of people who do relate to a person like me. And that's good advice for any relationship, right? The more genuine you are, the better your relationship can be.
And it works. 10,000 business customers, is that right?
Well, that was back in January. We are doubling in revenue every year. And in fact, number of customers is increasing faster than our revenue. So we haven't revealed the latest number, but if you can do some exponentials on your calculator, it's quite a few customers.
So the business is growing and growing and growing.
Is growing very fast, and most of it is word of mouth. Most of it is people who try Tailscale, use it for something at home with their family, with their home lab, and then realize like, oh, this is really neat. Why is networking at work such a pain? And then they bring it to work, and it expands at work, and then they end up buying a larger contract.
And what other plans do you have in your understated way? Is there something that you're thinking about doing differently in comparison to your average CEO?
So here's a weird thing that happened. A couple of years ago, we were going through the analytics of like who's using our product, and we realized that most of the AI companies in the world were using Tailscale for their networking. And this was kind of funny because we hadn't really thought about the AI market at all. We hadn't, if you searched for the words AI or LLM or GPU or something on our website, you would find nothing. Like there was no information. And what happened was just like a couple of very early AI companies whose names I'm sure you would recognize, when they were very early, decided to use Tailscale so they wouldn't have to think about networking. And then they got bigger, and then employees come and go because it's a really fast-moving market. And when they would jump from one of these old school AI companies to one of the new ones, they'd be like, hey, what's wrong with the network here? It's terrible. My last job, it was so much better. You guys need to get Tailscale. And so they all had Tailscale. And so we find ourselves, it's kind of funny, like the marketing team is like, well, I guess we're the network that powers AI, right? And by accident. But we need to make that a little more intentional because by accident isn't the best way to do everything in life. So we are building a tool that allows you to interconnect AIs to all of the data that you're trying to connect them to. So Tailscale is an interconnectivity tool, and you need to do this in a secure way so you can actually watch what these agents are doing, log it, audit it, filter it, so that if something goes wrong or if something is about to go wrong, you can catch it. And that's something that none of the AI providers can do because there's too many of them, and you need something standardized that works with all of them. And you can't do it on the other side with the data because there's too many kinds of data you want to connect to. Like something has got to be in the middle. That's what AI infrastructure security is going to look like. And the fascinating thing about it is like AI infrastructure security is not a thing that exists, right? There's nobody that you can buy this product from, like something that actually interconnects AI with the data they want to talk to and actually lets you control and audit it. And that's what we're trying to build next. So I'm pretty excited about that. But this is very much the audience, the customers told us where they were going. They adopted Tailscale in this AI world without us pushing them. And then they brought this problem to us and said like, hey, you're already trusted by every AI company. Why don't you build this? And I'm like, yeah, I guess we should build that. So that's what we're doing.
Avery Pennarun, CEO, co-founder of Tailscale and of numerous other companies, including ones done in your basement, I believe, with your sister. Was it in the basement with your sister?
Pardon?
The first business, was that in the basement with your sister?
Yes, it wasn't the business at the time. That was a hobby. The business was in our dorm room in the University of Waterloo.
In the dorm room, right. All of those accolades, thank you very much for joining us. And before we go, I would like to say a huge thank you to the tech crew who are behind you and the tech crew who are behind us here. They make us sound fantastic, they make us look fantastic with these lights, and they never get enough praise. So when you say thank you to us, please make sure you give them a round of applause as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.